Hi, folks, and welcome to Prep with a Pro Week 15. Oh my God, it's only 4 weeks now till I fly out, so I've only got 5 weeks till my show. So we're really starting to get to the pointy end. Now, God, there's so much to go through this week. Like, given the fact that last week I was just exhausted and I did a very short one, I've I actually think I've missed a number of cues that I really want to go through. And I think that'll really give you some quite good insights about, I guess, competing and traveling as well, but also about condition and how you kind of know when you're ready. So, like as you recall last week, let's start with the flying aspect of it. As you recall last week, I flew up to Sydney, so just had a lot of workshops. So it's kind of it was a very stressful weekend, really. And I wasn't so good with my diet because I was, out with friends and stuff. And, I'm not going to not go out with friends just because I'm on comp prep. Okay. I always, you know, that's how I sort of keep things real is by building in those little events, allowing myself to do these things and but then making sure I get right back on track when I do have these events. And you've seen that I've done that all the way through my prep. I've had some sort of event or I've gone away or my diet's been messed up for some reason, but then I've got right back on track to make sure that I haul it in and stay overall on progress. So with the flying, and this is going to be very, very informative for me, of course, going over to overseas. And when you compete overseas, there's a very rough general rule that you should always factor in being about 20% off your best condition due to the effects of flying. So when you do fly, you need to give yourself time to come back in. Now, I've kind of worked out with all of the flying that I've done with all of my competitions, and even backing up on consecutive days in different states. I've tried flying on the same day as a competition. I've flown the night before a competition. And I've generally found that the effects of flying don't kick in for about sort of 8 or so hours, but it's the after effects of flying that's important, particularly when you're overseas. And I've kind of worked out that I need 2 to 4 hours on the ground for every hour that I'm in the air. So if I'm flying to the States, for example, if I was competing in Los Angeles, that's a 15-hour flight. So I'd need at least 30 hours and even up to sort of, 120 hours. No, that's wrong, 60 hours, sorry, implicit maths, on the ground to pull my condition back. Now, just looking at these photos here, you can see that the Sunday, the 23rd of April, that was literally about an hour and a half after I'd flown back from Sydney. And that's only an hour and 20-minute flight. But I really didn't handle it very well at all. You can see I was just puffed and bloated. Now, usually when I'm doing a full competition flight, I make sure that I'm drinking enough. Now, on this flight, I know I was underhydrated, and hydration is very, very critical for um, helping pull your condition back when you fly. So I was underhydrated, and having been off diet, you could see the effects. I'm kind of quite bloated, and I was feeling really sort of a bit crappy as well as just being exhausted and stressed. But you can see by 2 days later, I'd come right back in. It literally taken me 2 days to come back into condition, which is going to be very useful to know because when I go to England, I hit the ground on a Wednesday morning and my show's actually on a Saturday. So I haven't actually given myself, potentially that's actually going to be quite a tight one. So it's going to be quite important to, so it was good to see that I did come back in within 2 days. And I hope that will stay true when I go to England. So having come back in on Tuesday, what did that do to my, let's have a look at what that did to my weight. Now you, you can see on Monday that the residual bloating from the flying has absolutely knocked out my weight completely. And like I say, I was underhydrated and didn't do the flight as well as I usually do. And this is why hydration is so critical. So you can see there that I'm actually, it looks like I've put on nearly 2 kilos of weight. But then you could see how my condition came back in on Tuesday. And then by Wednesday, I dropped over a kilo. And then Thursday, I was back down under 56, which I was just by a hair's breadth. But, I was really glad to see that I came back in. So from Monday to Thursday, that's the 3 days. I pretty much came back into condition. And although I didn't take any photos, I actually didn't train on Friday because it's kind of weird. This is probably one of the weirdest preps ever, and I'll get into that in a little bit later. But Friday, I was just absolutely exhausted, and I could barely get out of bed, so I didn't train on Friday, hence no photograph. But also on Thursday, I was really feeling completely off, like mentally off, physically off, didn't want to train, so I didn't do legs. We actually ended up doing a conditioning session instead of legs because I just mentally could not contemplate legs. And I've, I've, I've been getting in a bit of a stress this week about my conditioning. And basically on Thursday, my trainer told me to just pull my head in and just just chill the fuck out, really, because stressing, of course, is not going to help. But I've been stressing about why I've still got this extra kilo of weight on me. I have been down at 55, but now I'm solidly at 56 or hovering around there, and it's been really doing my head in. So although Thursday I was good, and then Saturday I was still nice and lean, and my condition had come back down. Friday, for some reason, I had absolutely zero energy and I didn't train. We'll get into that right now. This is where I want to talk about conditioning. Now, this is my condition on Friday morning, the day after my refeed. Now, this week I had a very clean refeed. I just had sort of char-grilled calamari and a nice quinoa salad. And what I've decided to do with my refeeds in the next few weeks is keep them very, very clean. So, I want to, because I don't know what foods I'm going to get in England or what restaurants there are available in England. I don't want to have my burger as a refeed anymore because I just don't know if I can replicate that in England. So what I'm going to do for the next couple of weeks is I'm going to clean up my refeed. I'm still going to have the calories because I need it, but I'm going to clean up my refeed so that it's kind of foods that I expect I might be able to get. So a calamari and quinoa salad I might not be able to get that. So this week I'm actually going to see if I can find somewhere that does a nice steak and just get steak and veggies. Although I've been having a junky refeed, a clean refeed can be just as good as long as you're getting the calories in. And I think if I can get a nice steak somewhere, then I think that I might just stick with that for the next couple of weeks and see how long it takes for my condition to come back in after a clean refeed. And as you can see here, and as you can see from that weight before, I was 55.9 on Thursday, and 2 days later I was still 55.9. So I came back straight away after a clean refeed. I was back down to my pre-refeed weight within 2 days. Now this is going to be very critical as well come show week, because if I figure out what my clean refeed is going to be before I go, and how long it takes me to come back into condition, then I'll know exactly what day when I get to England I can have my refeed. And this is when you get to the pointy end. These are the kind of things you need to start looking at: is what your condition's like, what the foods you're eating are doing to your condition, and how long it takes you to recover your condition. This is how I can get away without doing any manipulations in peak week, is by making sure that before I get to peak week, I know exactly what foods I'm going to eat on what day, and I know exactly how long it's going to take me to get back to show condition. So you can see, so this is why I'm doing this experiment, and I'm shifting now towards a clean refeed. So the calamari and quinoa salad, yes, I bumped up the calories, and I'll get to that in a second. But you can see on Friday morning, I was right back into condition. So this is how I know that I'm actually in show condition and have been for weeks, is because I'm pulling up dry, lean and dry every morning now. And this is what I love about getting so close to competition and being in competition condition. I'm not quite sure if you'd experience it for bikini and fitness, because you just don't get this lean. But I find that when I get this lean, I kind of become a little bit bulletproof. Obviously, I can't sort of go completely nuts and blow out the calories and stuff like that. But what happens when I do have blow out the calories is my body just soaks it up, and within a day, or even or at most 2 days, I'm right back to where I was. And knowing this is how I managed to do such long seasons, because I know that I can pull it back, and I kind of get this almost bulletproof thing happening, which is very reassuring, of course. So you can see, although on Thursday my weight was 55.9, on Saturday it was 55.9. This is Friday, and you can see I'm right back in condition after my refeed, which is really, really good to know. Okay, so let's get on to the numbers. So overall, a little bit up on last week, but much higher on the protein again, which is great. And absolutely, I'm just so chuffed with this. Absolutely bang on with my calories. Consistency through the roof there. Big bump of calories here with my clean refeed. Absolutely consistent everywhere else, which is fantastic. So very pleased with that. And here you can see fats and carbs low all week. I did have a little bit of a fatty day yesterday, but that's okay. And I did go out for breakfast on Friday. So even though I kept within my calories, I did go out for breakfast and have a piece of toast on Friday. But this is my clean refeed, and much higher protein than usual, because the calamari was an absolute ton of calamari. So you can see how that's affected me. I've come in really well the following day, probably because although there was nearly 200 grams of carbs, because it was so clean, it's really, really, and the fats were really low as well. I've come back much quicker. Legs are looking nice. There's definitely some improvement on my legs. Do you know, for a good photographer, I take the worst photos at the moment. I just can't seem to get them bloody focused. But you can see I've got some really good separation here through my quad and VMO. This VMO, I'm really pleased that I've worked very hard on that this year. So it's good to see that it's coming through, and I've just got this beautiful scallop here. Now, I did do my skin folds on my legs, and I'm down to 10.5, so I've still got 1.5 mil to go. Can't really see this because it's so frigging blurred. I'm really, which is annoying. But you can see my hamstrings and glutes are looking great. My back's looking good. Unfortunately, that's very blurred on the triceps. But what you can see, this one I was really pleased at. Look at the separation I've now got on my hamstrings. And I've definitely got some calf separation happening as well. So you can see I have changed. Even though my weight's up, my legs have changed. There's definitely some, better definition there. And I'm really pleased with this. Look at this lovely teardrop here. So if I can get that extra mil off my legs, then I'm going to be looking really good this year. So 1 mil's not too far to go. And I actually checked my abs as well. I'm down 1 millimeter on my abs. So I've only got 1 mil to go on my abs as well. Overall, really happy with that. Now, let's go to the numbers. Now, what has been going on? And this is why I say it's been the weirdest prep ever. No prep have I ever done where I've had weeks that I've put on weight, apparently. Now, the scales and how I'm looking are just in complete disagreement. You can see that I've come in, I'm lean and hard, my skin folds are right down as low as they ought to be. I have come in, but according to the scales, I've put on weight. What do these red dots mean? Well, this is my period. Now, as you recall, about 3 weeks ago, I was like, I wanted to test this theory, but that you lose the most fat in the 2 weeks before your period. Well, at that point in time, my period was due on week 13, and it didn't happen. And in fact, I was telling my preppy who on Friday, I was telling my preppy that I think I've missed it, and for the first time ever, I think I've lost my periods during a prep. I I've never lost my periods during a prep despite getting so lean. I did lose them last year when I basically just broke myself. And actually, this is has been one of my concerns all the way through this prep. Is the fact that I don't think, like I guess, hormonally and metabolically, physically, I was in such a good state to even start a prep. So I have had concerns about this prep all the way through. And it's probably why I've been a little bit stressed about it a bit more than usual. And then the fact that I was just telling my preppy on Friday that I think for the first time ever I've lost my periods because it just seems to have taken such a long time. And you can see here it's actually blown out to 48 days. Before I started my prep, my cycle was bang on track, and back in the February one, I was right back down to 28 days. Then you can see this one was a 35-day cycle, and this is now 48 days. But the good thing is, at least it's happened. And when you get extremely lean, like I am at the moment, you do expect your periods to blow out a little bit. I would suggest if you're doing bikini and fitness and you actually lose your periods, then I have to say that your prep is not a good prep, because I don't believe as a bikini or fitness competitor you should ever lose your periods. If me as a figure competitor who can compete for a year round and not lose your periods, I guess there's a couple of things that indicates how well I do it. It does blow out, yes, and that's only to be expected when you get so lean. But I'd actually thought I'd lost it this time, so I was very, very happy to see them arrive. What does it mean for that? This is why I've just put it in, just to see, going back to that sort of theory about female fat loss, about how you lose the fat in the 2 weeks before your period. Well, you can see the February one, I was actually going through a phase of apparently putting weight on, and then straight after it, I lost a ton of weight. So that kind of doesn't work. And then this one here, yes, I did lose fat before my next one, and it did sort of increase, but then in the couple of weeks afterwards, I kept losing fat, although at a much lower rate. And then all of a sudden it ramped up. And like I said, I did expect it around about week 12 or 13. So that's the immediate weeks before my period. So I did, I was like quite happy. I did expect the fat loss to increase then. But then it stopped. So I don't think that theory of losing the fat before your period necessarily holds water. Who knows? But just a normal weight loss, if you were just on a normal weight loss program, it might hold true. But I think on a prep, it doesn't necessarily hold true. But like I say, this is putting weight on and then losing it in chunks and then putting it on again. Like I say, this is just the weirdest prep I've ever done. I've never ever had this happen before. And like I say, I think it's because potentially physically, hormonally, metabolically, whatever, I probably wasn't in the best situation. And this week, I have been getting very, very tired. I am getting, you know, flying back from Sydney just wiped me out. I trained well this week, but Friday I didn't train because I was just so exhausted, and it could be because that was the day that my period kicked in. I'm not one to use a period as an excuse, but I really was just completely exhausted. And today I'm supposed to be training, but again I'm just exhausted. I'm kind of erring on the side of caution because I've always said that rest is just as important as training, and I think so close now to my show, I really do need to start looking after myself a lot better and resting a lot more, just to make sure that I can maximize my training. So again, I think physically this has taken a lot out of me potentially than I expected it might do. And I'm potentially not in such a good state as I'd like to be. But, I have been working very hard again, which doesn't help my situation. So the next 4 weeks, I've got over the hump of all of my work. So for the next 4 weeks, I'm really, really going to focus on pulling it back, resting as much as possible. I've still got just those last couple of kilos to go, so I just want to make sure that everything's bang on track, and I really, really bring it in. It's not far to go. I could get on stage now, totally, and I'd look good, but I'm not at the level where I expect to be, and I've got the highest expectations of myself than anybody. So I'm going to keep going, but I'm really going to focus in the next 4 weeks on keeping it bang on track, be cleaning up my refeed and making sure I find something that I think I can get in England as well, and see just getting in the rest and really, really pulling back. And as my trainer said, chilling the fuck out. Okay, so where are we doing on the numbers? All right, now, so this little hiccup for the last 2 weeks where I've actually put on weight has unfortunately put me behind where I should be. I should be down at 55.7, and even my low point this week was 55.9. So having been a couple of weeks ahead in that really good position, a couple of weeks ahead, I'm now potentially even a little bit behind. So I am going to change my diet a little bit. I'm going to my day-to-day calories during the week, I am going to reduce a little bit. I've been around about 1650 or so. I'm going to make sure that comes back down to about 1600, maybe even about 1585, which puts me in a good 20% deficit during the week. And then my refeed this week, I'll pull it back a little bit. I'll make sure it's nice and clean, so that I'll aim for this overall level of 1684. So my average for this week was 1721. I'll make sure that my average for this week is 1684. So I'm in that really good 15% deficit. Now, these are tiny, tiny little changes overall, and it'll probably equate to maybe 100, 200 grams of fat loss at most. But if I can keep doing that over the next couple of weeks, then that's nearly another kilogram. And given the fact that I've only got a mil to come off my abs and I've only got 1.5 mil to come off my legs, I think that's going to be enough to have me absolutely in my best condition. So it's a tiny little change, a tiny little tweak, and I think that if I do that in combination with actually resting and allowing myself to recover fully, then I think that's really going to do the difference and bring me in nicely. So that's a lot for this week. So I'll leave it there. Lots to go through. I've been through a fair bit, and I will see you next week.